Howdy. Old Bubba's back. I want to talk to you again today about some things we kind of touched on last week. We talked about the protest over the flag and all of that kind of stuff. And the two groups that are kind of behind or pushing, and these people identify with, are called the social justice warriors and the Black Lives Matter people. And it's interesting to me to notice that a lot of these things that these religious leaders kind of leading the thing along, and it's preachers and other people like that, and I'm sure that there's some good people in these things that are trying to do what's right. But like I say, there's a lot of preachers, and it doesn't matter whether they're black or white that's in it, that they're preaching to the American people and telling us what we need to do and what we have to do and what we must do in order for things to get better and be right. Well, I want to ask you something to think with me about. Jesus had something to say about preachers and teachers in the Bible, and I want to read you just a little bit right quick. Matthew 7:15 says, "Beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they're ravenous wolves." Jesus said there's some preachers and leaders out there that'll talk, and they'll talk a good game. Yeah, they're for good things, and they're good people and all of this. But he says in reality, inside, they're just a pack of wolves. We're ready to eat you up, tear you apart. Well, how do you know for sure then? How can you tell the good ones from the bad ones? Well, Jesus has the answer to that in the next verse. He says, "You will know them by their fruits." So I want us to look at one example, a few minutes here. Ferguson, Missouri. This is the case where that young black man, Michael Brown, was shot. He'd done some bad things, and he'd tried to kill the officer in his car, and he was coming back, and people said he had his hands up, and that may not be true at all, but nevertheless, that's what they said. And so they started protesting, and the next thing you know, they had riots on their hand, and buildings were burned down, and people were hit with rocks and other things, and shots were fired, and all kind of things were going on. Now, what's the fruit produced here? Well, $4.6 billion in businesses were burned to the ground or destroyed in other ways. Cost the taxpayers of St. Louis $5.7 million in paying for all of the stuff, and police and so forth. And that doesn't count the federal government and the National Guard and all that. Lives were ruined. People were injured. Jobs were lost. A lot of these people that had worked in these neighborhoods, they'd worked and saved all their life to have a business and worked hard at it. And now it was all gone, with all of these people rioting and doing all this stuff. Now I want to ask you the question. This is what I want you to think about now, real seriously. What kind of fruit did the leaders of this movement produce? What kind did they bring forth with their words and actions? Well, let's ask this. Is there anything in that brought people together? Was there anything in there that made people love one another more? Like one another people more? Or was there more hatred than there was when it started? Yeah, you think about that. All this business and places tore down. I don't quote Lyndon Johnson favorably very often, but he said something one time that I think kind of applies, and I want you to think about this. Old Lyndon said, any jackass can kick down a barn, but it takes a real carpenter to build one. Were these people doing this? Were they kicking or building? I thank you for listening. I'm going to be talking more about this in the next few weeks. Bubba appreciates you listening. Tell other people about old Bubba so they can know what you know. Thank you. Have a good day.